Hey, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast, where I explore the world of neurodiversity and musicianship. I'm your host, Jon Hart, along with Luna, my guitar, and today I'll be chatting about performing and dialogue in a gig situation. Each episode is broken up into a traffic format, where I'll share insights in the red section, improvised babble in the amber, and a recommendation you might find handy in the green. So let's head on over to the red section for more insights. So in this section, we'll cover everything from setting up to sound check to engaging with fans after the show. So let's get started with the 10 points. So point 1, understanding sensory overload. Neurodivergent individuals often experience sensory sensitivities, which can be heightened in performance settings. It's crucial to create a sensory-friendly environment. This might involve using noise-cancelling headphones or finding a quiet space backstage where you can decompress if needed. Prioritize your comfort and well-being. Number 2 is scripting dialogue between songs. Crafting a script for the dialogue between songs can be a powerful tool. This provides structure and reduces the anxiety that can come with spontaneous speaking. Remember, this script doesn't have to be rigid. It's a guide to ensure clear communication with the audience while allowing space for your authentic self to shine through. Number 3 is embracing non-traditional communication styles. Neurodivergent musicians often have unique ways of communicating. This might involve using music itself as a form of expression or incorporating visual aids into your performance. Embrace these differences. They are part of what makes your performance special and authentic. Number 4 is utilizing visual cues. Visual cues can be invaluable for neurodivergent musicians on stage. Consider using cue cards or visual prompts to guide you through your performance. These cues serve as anchors, providing a sense of structure and confidence, even in the midst of the performance. Point 5 is setting up and sound checking. Before the performance, take the time to set up your equipment and go through sound check. This is your opportunity to ensure everything is in working order and that the sound is balanced to your liking. Having this process in place can provide a sense of control and ease any pre-performance jitters. Number 6 is navigating unpredictable environments. Live performances can be filled with unexpected moments. For neurodivergent musicians, this can be particularly challenging. It's essential to have strategies in place to adapt to changes on the fly. This might involve deep breathing exercises or grounding techniques to help you stay centered and focused. Number 7 is establishing a pre-performance routine. A pre-performance routine is like a roadmap to the stage. It can include a series of calming activities such as mindfulness exercises or stretching that can prepare both your body and mind for the performance. Having a structured routine can help elevate pre-show jitters. 8 is connecting with your audience. Building a connection with your audience is a cornerstone of any memorable performance. For neurodivergent musicians, this connection can be especially powerful. Find ways to engage with your audience that feel authentic to you. This could include making eye contact, sharing personal stories, or even using your music to convey emotion. Number 9 is communicating with fans and your merch stand. After the performance, consider setting up a merch stand. This provides an opportunity to connect with fans and share your music in a tangible way. Remember to communicate openly and authentically with those who approach you. This can be a special moment for both you and your fans. And number 10 is reflecting and growing. After each performance, take the time to reflect on what went well and what could be improved. This process of self-reflection and growth is essential for any musician, neurodivergent or not. It allows you to continually refine your craft, ensure that each performance is a step forward in your musical journey. So that's it for the 10 points. Remember, being a neurodivergent musician is a unique and powerful journey. Embrace your authenticity and let your music speak for itself. So that's it for the red section. We're now going to go into the amber section for some improvised babble. See you then. Okay, so we're now into the amber section, and I'm going to go through some improvised thoughts. And when I think about of the 10 points I've just said, and I think about performing, and I think of dialogue, I think obviously experience comes into it. The more you perform, the more you can start to work on lots of different areas, whether you're neurodivergent or not. I think we can all have jitters. We can all have, anxiety about different parts of the performance, whether it's when we're on stage or when where we're just before stage, or whether we're in the car on the way over to the gig, or post gig. There's lots of different elements to it. And, what I do is if I just go through each point. So point 1 was understanding sensory overload. Now, I've turned up to certain venues before and, they've got really heavy music going on. Maybe I've walked into a place and the lights are really bright, or I've had one of those journeys on the way to, certain gigs. Now, I'm based in the UK and I'm not really a fan of playing London gigs. The reason is that if I take public transport up, I'm surrounded by lots of people. I've got lots of gear with me. It's my pedal, it'll be my guitar, it'll be all sorts. And then I've got to then try and, navigate my journey. I've got to try and, keep my sensory overload at bay. Sometimes you feel like you're masking, you're unmasking because you're in public, and so it's lots of things that you're just trying to weigh up, which is in like a normal commute, a normal journey up to somewhere like London, which is just super busy, lots of people. And for a lot of neurodivergence, it can be hell when you're going up to somewhere like that, because it's crowded and so noisy. And so when I'm going to a gig as well, and you've got that anxiety built up, you've got that stress, and you've never been to the venue before, so you don't really know the surroundings, and you turn up and then you're trying to wait for the sound guy and you're trying to do this. And I've never really been comfortable in performing, because as a solo musician, as an independent musician, you've got to do everything yourself. And that's a given. But I know a lot of musicians have an entourage around them, or they have people that can help them out with certain areas. And I need to have that going forward. I need that support network where if I'm so focused on the music, I'm going to forget to eat. I'm going to forget to drink. I'm going to forget to look after myself, which is so vital for me to be able to perform, that I need to have this, calm journey on the way up. And even driving up to London, that's really stressful as well, because driving in London is. And unless you've got lots of experiences with that, you're in a black cab and you're doing a taxi driver, or whatever it is, and you've commuted up there for years and years and years every single day, then it's fine. But for the person who's just going up there once a month or now and again, it can be incredibly stressful. So there's a lot of preparation, I think, that you've got to work out. Not only your travel, not only what you're going to wear, what you're going to do, all these sort of things. I also think about even before I go on stage, what am I going to be saying? What am I going to doing? How is my sound check going to go? And I think visualizing all of that before you even go and, step into, right, I'm in gig mode, is really, really important. So I have done things where I've got a pedal board. Now I have 3 pickups in my guitar. And that's to make the sound, the sound of the guitar go from sort of mono to stereo. It has a really thick, rich sounding, tone and volume and sound and things. And I do a lot of percussion, all sorts of stuff as well. And if I go to a sound guy and they look at my guitar and like, oh, this is going to be easy. And then I go, oh, I've got 3 pickups. You need to go mix these individually. And they don't mix it to how I like it. We're going to have conflict, and I don't like confrontation. I don't want to have that conversation. So I've set up on my pedal board I've got several pedals. I've got one with vocal harmony, but I've got a digital mixer, which is one of the Bose ones that you use for a PA, and it has 4 channels on it. So I put all my 3 pickups into there, and I do some EQ on the mixer, and then it has one master out. So when I turn up to these shows, what I've done is I've plugged in all the settings into my pedals and things. So the important thing for that is that I get the exact sound that I want from my monitor, and then they can just, mask whatever they like on the main speakers, which I'm not going to hear. And this has been so handy. I remember doing one gig up in Scotland at Ullapool Guitar Festival, and I was co-headlining on one of the nights with a fingerstyle legend, Preston Reed, and I remember it vividly. We were supposed to have 30 minutes sound check each, and Preston went first, and he did that. But he's very, very tall, and he was on stage, and the lights were sort of pointing downwards, but he wasn't able to see his guitar. And at the end of 30 minutes, he was like, "Can someone get me a desk lamp so I can actually see what I'm playing?" And then people started looking around for a desk lamp after this 30 minutes, and he was still on stage, and it was eaten into my sound check time. And then people started coming at the door, and I was just like, I'd literally flown in that late afternoon. I took an hour, that was in Inverness, and then I got an hour and a half car journey all the way to Ullapool. So I sort of turned up like fresh from traveling into like, I'm going to do this headline gig. In hindsight, I would have, stayed over the night before, rested, all sort of stuff as well, been relaxed. So it was such a whirlwind. And then there was all these legends there as well, and of acoustic guitarists. And they were all going to be in the audience watching. And so it was just like, this is such a whirlwind. But anyway, then with this sound check, it then meant that I only had 5 minutes left. I had 5-10 minutes to sound check. And I was just like, shit. Like, people were knocking at the door. And then they were like, have you sound checked? I'm like, no, because Preston's trying to sort out this and everything as well. And, no one wants to be confrontation. No one wants to, rub each other up the wrong way. I understood what Preston needed, but at the same time, I was like, I've got to go on stage. So the greatest thing is that when I plugged in, because I did all my preset settings with EQs and everything in my pedals at home, I did all the geeky stuff. As soon as I set up and plugged in, I then put in my jack lead on the master output into, the DI, and the sound guy then did the sound check in 5 minutes. And he was like, mate, that's incredible. How the hell do you get that sound out of what you've created? And you've done it in minutes. It's because I've built it in a way that I can plug in and play, because I've had so many plug in and play gigs that if you're not prepared for that, I never turn up to a gig now thinking that I'm going to have longer than 10 minutes because of that Ullapool Guitar Festival situation, which means that I've got, I don't want to be on stage for longer than 10 minutes. I'm not one of those fingerstyle guitarists or musicians that can be there for half an hour, an hour. I hate it. I want to go on stage, do a little sound check and get off as soon as possible. Yeah, I want to get the sound I want, but that's why I want to do all the geeky stuff at home and get all my settings, get all my leads checked, get a little SOS bag where it's like a toiletry bag where I put like little mini deodorant, like hair wax or plasters or whatever it is, a little tiny bottle of water and some chewing gum, something. I've got Volta on there, whatever it is. And I throw that into the bag because you never know. It's one of those that you're just like, I don't want to be rushing out and getting, 9-volt batteries, and I don't want to be going out getting extra picks and everything as well. I want to have an SOS bag that has everything I need in it. And that's experience after loads of gigs. So when you go and do these gigs where I've literally got 5 minutes sound check. I mean, that's stressful. And obviously as a neurodivergent as well, it can be incredibly stressful and anxious. But I was quietly confident because I already did the prep work. It's like a chef was like, oh, I can cook up this meal in no time because I've done all the prep work. It's all laid out in front of me. And actually I had one of the guitarists come up to me after my performance saying, do you know what? That was the best sound of the whole weekend. I was like, that's an amazing compliment because, it basically has appreciation of the prep time that I've put into it. And a lot of other guitarists have had loads more time to sound check. And then I had lots of people buy my CDs. And that is always a good sign because people have obviously connected with what I've done and the sound has been there. And not only guitar wise, but vocally and everything just sounds like a one-man band sort of sound. And I've sort of moved forward with this, get as much prep done at home. So I do all my dialogue at home. So when we're talking about script and dialogue between songs, so vital. Your whole show is a story, or your whole show is, if you went to go to the cinema and then they did a little act and then someone came on and it was just like, oh, we just have to quickly like tune up, the gear. And then they started going, and then they put the second act of the film on. Everybody be like, what the fuck are you doing? The same with theatre and stuff. This is what's going to be the same with gigs. Most people focus so much on their music that they forget that the craft includes dialogue between songs. And the way I've been able to master that is you hear the clapping as soon as you've finished your song. And whilst they're clapping, I start to maybe retune. I like do one of the strings or two of the strings. As soon as the clapping dies down, I've already tuned 2 strings. Then I start talking a little bit. Then I tune a string. Then I talk a little bit more, maybe adding a little joke, and there's a formula that you can work through for every single song. And you want to have a little backstory, but you want that backstory to you want it to invoke an emotion. So it can do with, I like to send people like, it can be sad and then it can be happy. So you can crack a joke or whatever it is. And you want people to know that that's what that song was about before. And now we're transitioning into this song, which is kind of linked into what I do and breaking down what you do as well, breaking down your craft, breaking down the songwriting, breaking down, I've got a merch stand over there and I've got kids to feed. So, if anything you can help me, like I do it in a jokey way and people appreciate that because you're not just like a salesman. You're not just saying, oh, yeah, I've got a website and social media, go and check us out or whatever it is. You've got to weave it in where it's strategic and fits with you authentically. It doesn't have to be rigid. You can have these things in place. And, sometimes I've learned things off by heart. Sometimes I've learned the jokes off by heart. There are some comedians out there who do the same jokes at every gig because they know they've turned into classics and people want to hear them every time. And I've got one, I left the Isle of Wight to go and live in London, and I sort of make the joke of that's like leaving the Shire for Mordor. Sort of figuratively sort of speaking, the London Eye is like Sauron, blah, 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 all sorts of stuff as well. And that gets a little laugh. And then when I break down my track of money into all of its layers, so I'm going to play the cash registers with my right hand, I'm going to play the bass line with my left, I'm going to bring in the Hammond organ with this part, and then I'm going to bring in the beat, then I'm going to bring in the vocal over the top. I'm going to try and do all of this without looking like I'm crapping myself or I'm like this and stuff. It's something that I've carved out, and it gets a little, it makes people happy, and you're pre-framing people for your songs. You're not just like, oh, I just wrote this one, just let me know what you think. Or, yeah, so this track is about this, and yeah, this is what it sounds like. It's just so like, I've been there. You want to be captivating. So when I've got a little mini solo in the middle of my songs, I don't just stand there. I now walk to the edge of the stage. I walk from side to side or whatever it is. And you want to capture that magic as best as I can, but the magic only comes through with authenticity. And I feel that I can't put a mask on when I go on stage. I've got to be the same person I am off stage and on stage, because people are like, he's just the same guy. He's not doing, he's not pretending to be anyone else. And so that's when it gets into music as well. I don't introduce myself when I go on stage. I don't talk about anything. I start off with my track Wind Chime. Now, the reason why I start off with that is because people are immersed immediately into a track that's completely different to what everyone else plays, whether it's a band, a duo, or solo artist that I found, because I play my strings behind the nut of my guitar around the headstock, and they all sound like wind chimes. And then they hear the wind chime, and then I start then slapping and then tapping my guitar, and then it layers up and builds up, and then has vocal harmony and delayed vocal harmony, and then it goes into this sort of whole progressive thing. And that is my best way to introduce myself. Let the music speak for itself. And at the end of it, everyone's like, whoa, okay, I'm now going to listen. You've got my attention. Where are we going with this? And then I go into something a bit softer. And you want to play with your tracks. I don't do the same sort of style of track back to back. So I wouldn't do a strummy, singy thing back to back. I wouldn't do 2 looping tracks back to back. I wouldn't do 2 fingerstyle percussion ones. I'd go from like modern fingerstyle, which is percussion and singing, to then traditional fingerstyle, which is kind of folky. And I play with the, from upbeat to mellow to, solo guitar to cover to whatever it is. And it feels like a show, but the dialogue obviously is stitching everything together as well. And, I've got this crazy idea, and this is where I'm like, yeah, I'm neurodivergent. I've got ADHD, but I've not been able to bring it to reality yet because it's so freaking hard to do. And the idea is that I come on stage with no strings on my guitar, and I got a loop pedal embedded into my harmony pedal. And I've got this little new string winder thing called Roadie, and it can be a string winder. It can also tune up the strings and stretch them and sort of stuff. My idea is that I want to come on stage with no strings, and then I want to restring the first string. So that'd be the 6th string. So it would be the bass string, the E. I want to string it up, and then I want to play bass line, and I want to loop that. So basically I'd start with like a drum beat, and I can use the fretboard as like a little guero because it's got no strings on it. And then, then I do the bass line, and then I restring the 2nd string, and then I bring in a 2nd line, and then the 3rd string, and so on and so on. And it layer up this sort of really intricate song of lots of different parts, and I'm singing over the top of it whilst I'm restringing and all sort of stuff as well. And this track is like 15 minutes at the moment. I've got tons of packs of strings, and I'm not brought it to reality, and it's called Strung Up, but it's also like super anxiety, super stressful and everything as well. I'm like, why are you doing this? But, that's not coming to fruition. That's not reality yet. But what it's doing is just, when we talk about like visuals and other things, people be like, what? He's turned up with a guitar with no strings. And I'm sort of thinking I wouldn't probably do it on my best guitar. I'd probably do it on an older guitar. But it's just another thing. I don't want it to be gimmicky. I don't want it to be anything like that. I want it to actually have a really awesome song, but it's going to take some time. But these things that you want to think about all the time, and you might have visuals that you go on stage, or some things that you can introduce. You could do magic tricks in between your songs. I mean, that would be amazing. I want to go out as the neurodivergent musician. So I want to do songs, and then I want to do speaking in between. And, this is the same with visual cues and stuff as well. You can bring an iPad on stage if you want to. You can have sort of certain things where you could have a blank a sheet which will have your set list and stuff as well, and you can color code it. You could put highlighters. You could do all sorts of things, highlight different words, whatever it is that helps you with structuring and keeps you grounded. And it helps the sound guy as well, because they probably see the same musicians all the time. So if you can go there with some sort of distinction, some unique side of it, and you're super friendly, but you're super professional and really great at what you do, you know, you're going to get called back to do lots of things more often. So sort of thinking about these other other points here, we've got utilizing visual cues, you've got setting up and sound check, navigating unpredictable environments. Yeah, it's sort of same thing when you're on stage, and like, depending on what stage you've got, I've been in pubs, I've been in festivals, and sometimes things can be hit and miss. Sometimes, right, you're turning up and you're like, yeah, I've got this down. And when I'm performing, I also try to give myself space. If I've got songs that are constantly upbeat and it's got lots of technical stuff, I'm in my head. That's why I need to have some other softer songs to sort of calm myself down. And I have some songs that I sustain a chord, and I deliberately sustain the chord for as long as possible. So it's almost like that breathing, and you can just hear the fizz in the monitors. You can hear sort of shuffling in seats. I sometimes look out, but depends if I see family and friends, and depends on how technical the track is as well. But this is from a solo musician, but I used to be in bands, and I used to love the bands because, you would connect with each other at the same time. So there's obviously a massive difference between doing bands and solo gigs, because with a band, if you mess up, someone else can take over and carry on with it. But if you mess up as a solo musician, you've got to accept that you've messed up. I've had things where strings are snapped on stage before, and then I'm like, right, we're now going to go into a string changing workshop, and I'm going to teach you how to do this. And again, it's just like off the fly, working it out how it's going to do it, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's like technical stuff. Things can cut out, technology, batteries can die. Even with the preparation, technology, it's like phones. You want to go and show someone something, and then you get the buffer wheel, or your phone dies, or it just crashes. It's just freezes and doesn't work. Same with the performance. You can be having the best time, and then something can kick into your brain, or you can have an intrusive thought right in the middle of a song. And I remember Tommy Manuel talking about trying to keep focus. I think it was Tommy Manuel. And he was like, you've got to stay focused. Otherwise you start thinking about, have I put the washing on? Or have I done this? Have I done, what am I going to have for eat tonight? And those sort of thoughts can very quickly, especially with ADHD, oh my days, you can be like bouncing all over the place. You can be playing, you look up and you see a light, or you see a little light on the monitor or something like that. And then you're like, oh, why are that light's on there? Oh, look at the dust from the light there. Oh yeah, why is that going down there? Oh, hang on a minute, shit, I'm in the middle of a gig here. So trying to keep grounded and in the moment is tricky as well. But obviously, even before that, you want to be mastering your songs. And the best way, like I was talking about recording, is you want to emulate the performance situation. You want to film yourself as much as possible so you can emulate the tension that you get. You want to be able to, I put a guitar strap on my guitar and I go wandering around the garden. So I'm standing up. You've got to decide whether you're going to be on a stool or if you're going to be standing up. And standing up allows you to be a bit more free. And, even before performing, I remember the hardest places that I found were the green room and other people doing sound checks. Because, especially if they're friends as well, because you're like, you want to support them, but you're like, I'm not in the right mode right now. I need to go and take myself to a dark place. And this is where a lot of people go, why, sometimes I go to the toilet a lot, and it's not necessarily just to go to the toilet, it's just to go and take a break. And that's where someone won't disturb me. And, back in the day, if I used to smoke back in the day, I would go and do that, but obviously it affects vocals and things. But yeah, I think it's just trying to navigate where, the best things. And this is the same with like, once you've got pre-performance where you're trying to do your sound check, you're trying to like connect with the sound guys, connect with the venue guy, trying to do the tickets. Oh my goodness. Ticketing. It's the worst thing in the world. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Music business is essential. But but trying to get people to your gigs, like the word try is there, you know, and this is where you start, you know, these intrusive thoughts start creeping in where I'm like, oh, I'm over the hill. Oh, I'm never going to be able to sell out a venue because no one likes the shit I do. And you start getting RSD, you start going into these modes, and, you know, even some like family and friends just don't come to gigs anymore because you've been doing it for so long and they've come to so many gigs and you haven't hit the next level. And, you know, I'm closing on 40, blah, blah, blah. And so now it's just like, you know, there feels like an invisible conversation of, you know, surely you're old enough now. You should be doing something, a real job or whatever it is. And, you know, I mean, that's bullshit to me. But there is that sort of line of it where back in the day, maybe when I was starting out on this journey, it was people were like, yeah, we'll definitely come out, and everyone's life changes, and you know, also people move into different parts of their life and all sorts of stuff. But it's hard when people no one really wants to come to your gigs as much anymore. And this is not everyone, by the way. There's a select few, a core lot who have been coming to every gig. And I'm so grateful and appreciative of them. You know who you are. But there are other sort of times where, yeah, you'll feel like you're drawing blood out of a stone. But that's why, you know, that's why I've kept going. Because the thing is that I've got the capability, and you can work out two ways, especially with performing when you're doing gigs and stuff as well. If one person turns up and they love what you do, you never know, that can open up so many doors. So that's why you got to treat your gigs like they're your last or they're your first. Like, it's got to be super buzzy. And I've now started to ditch ticketed gigs for now, so I can start to build up an audience again. My idea is I'd love to get a gig where I turn up and it's filled with neurodivergents or neurodivergent musicians. And there's one artist called Rory, ADHD love couple. And I keep on their socials, go and check out their book, Dirty Laundry, really, really great. And I remember she sharing a story about before she started bringing out the channel about ADHD love, she was struggling as a music artist, and she was struggling with her mental health, struggling lots of things. And then she built up the ADHD love Instagram page along with her partner. And she built up a community filled with people with ADHD. And her music act then grew because everything she was writing was also related to ADHD and lots of other things. And the people who were connecting to that channel were connecting to her music. And so she sold out a UK tour, I think last year or whatever it was, which is incredible. And it's like, you can see the story arc of someone like that. And I'm really inspired by someone like Rory and everything she's gone through and everything she's doing now. I don't know her personally, but you can just see it online. And that's the beauty of the internet. And I now know when she's doing her performances with those group of people who really, they're not just there because to support the person. They're there because they want to support the message and support the mission and the person at the same time. And it all connects together beautifully. And I guarantee, because she's gone through that hard graft of doing like those gigs before where she was struggling to get people, whatever it was, or like any traction or any momentum, to now where she's getting sold out gigs, that's where you're like, I'm so glad I carried on. I didn't give up. And that's what I feel as a musician. You know, I'm doing this podcast, I'm doing the album, I'm doing lots of other stuff, and I'm still performing, but I still try and turn up to a gig and make it my best, you know. And I have a core fan base that turns up to my gigs, and probably a core fan base of, you know, they're like 10 who turn up all the time. And I'm so appreciative. And I do the same, they've seen the same show, but, I try and put on my best as much as possible. But not just for me, but for them. I would love to go and get one day where it's like a venue or a gig where it's completely sold out with hundreds of people. And they're like, do you know what? I was there right at the bottom, right at the start of this journey. And we have done this all together. And I think that's with building up a fan base. It takes a little while. You've got to try and navigate those waters. You've got to try and find a way. But that's why, like when I talk about composing and recording, it's all got to be geared to the heart. And same with performing, and the same with, dialogue and everything. All of it is connected together, from writing, composing, to recording, mixing, mastering, to releasing online, to filming, to editing, to performing, dialogue, networking, social media. All of it has got to be connected to the heart. If it's all head, which, yes, we've got to do that with business, with finances. But even with finances, I'm starting to get to a point now where I'm learning something called about wealth creation, all sorts of stuff as well, that connects with the heart and not the head. If I can connect with the heart with everything, then it will last forever. It's a long game, because there's short game wins. You can do performances, but if you go into the performance thing, I'm going to do this performance because I'm going to be able to meet this person, it's going to be able to help me do this, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You've got to turn up because you want to just perform, because that's your energy. And if someone's there to watch you, then great, that's a bonus, but that's not the whole point of it. So anyway, that is it for the amber section. I'm now going to go into the green section for a quick recommendation. See you then. Okay, so we're now into the green section. I'm going to go for a quick recommendation. I've given you lots of recommendations, little ones, so sort of just weave them together. But if we talk about pre and during and post in regards to your performance, pre-performance tip is get your gear in check. So take control of your sound. So if rather than letting the sound guy, get the EQ and all that sort of stuff as well, and reverb, etc., invest in a way of, in some gear and a pedal board that will allow you to do it yourself. And then you can just plug in and then they can mask it. The sound guy will be so appreciative, and you will know exactly what you will get through your monitor. Now, also you can turn up with your own amp, and then you can obviously feed that out to the speakers and stuff as well. And then so get the settings on your amp or your pedals or whatever it is on your guitar, get it all in check first. And then you will know the more gigs that you do, you're like, these are my settings. It's the same with the recording. The more recording you do, you got your mixing presets and everything as well. I'm not having to send it on to anyone else. All the sound guy will have to do is just turn up and then maybe add on a bit of, master EQ or wherever it is. And then also think about, obviously what you're wearing. Keep it like this is my dress code every single gig. I've now got trainers specifically for gigs, black sort of trainers. And then I've got black jeans, and I might wear blue jeans, but then I've got 2 or 3 shirts. That's what I use for my gigs. That's my gig wear. So I know when I change into it, right, I'm into gig mode. And then you might want to get a little SOS bag. It's like a pencil case, just filled with lots of bits and bobs that you could pop into a bag. Depending if you're on like public transport, it's just something you can slot into your gig bag. Whatever it is, just think about that sort of style. Think about the essentials that you would need that you don't have to hop out to the shop for. So that's, and then obviously when you're sound checking, you're turning up, and make sure you're meticulous about the way you sound check. And then when you're feeding like one lead into the other, make it really therapeutic. I know it sounds really woo woo, but like if you're meditative, like with the way that you're like, right, plug in this and here and this and here, and it becomes a little process. You can shut everyone out and you can like, right, I'm in my mode now. You know, I've actually got like a doormat now that I stick under I've got one pedal that I use for my gigs, because when I go and put sometimes on like dirty, dusty floors and all that sort of stuff as well, I'm like, all my cables get dusty and dirty, and I don't like that. So I like to have something underneath my pedals, and you know, you can get a small rug or whatever it is, you know, that you can add to make you feel comfortable. You can even get a big one if you want to, that you can stand on. It's entirely up to you, because I know some musicians like bare feet. Again, it's all subjective. And then when it comes to your performance and you're in the green room, what I tend to like to do in the green room, actually, I use different tunings. Now, this is not the same for all musicians, but what I like to do is I stay in one tuning, but I tend to like practice all of the hard bits of my songs over and over. I won't change tuning, because all it is muscle memory. It's visualizing where everything is. So it will sound absolutely horrendous for you know, some songs in a different tuning. But again, it's just visualization. It's just getting there. And I stitch all of those sort of highlights, the hard highlights of songs, back to back. So I just practice them back to back as much as possible. I go into my vocal warm up. I like to hum first. I do a little Iron Man stretch where I stretch out my arm and then put my hand up against the wall and then twist, and then, you know, maybe do a vocal octave up and down, twist my hand 90 degrees and so on and so on. And so that sort of wakes my arms up a little bit. So you can kind of get into like your routine in the green room. Now, it's different, obviously, if there's other people there, they start chatting to you, because they'll be nervous as well. But just try and stick to the things that you do. When I'm vocally warming up, I like just go to the toilet, whatever it is, because I just feel it's more private there. Different situations. You might go outside if you've got time to do it. You might go to the car, wherever you want to. And then when you go on stage, again, I always sort of feel going straight into music is a great way to start without introducing. And that's why I like to start with a powerful track like Wind Chime, and then think about the dynamics of your songs. And that will weave into your dialogue. When are you going to crack some jokes? When are you going to bring in about your merch? When are you going to maybe educate? You can entertain, you can educate, and execute. That's a really good three-way process. So, you know, entertaining is talking about the jokes and talking about stories and things as well. Educating is about, right, my merch stand is over there. And then, educating is, you know, talking about your tracks, breaking down your songwriting process, breaking down some layers of whatever you do. And then execute is like, you know, call to action. So, well, can you go and check out my merch stand here? I've got this going on here. You can go to my website. I've got business cards I've put on all the tables. So you can come and, you know, share a video, use this hashtag, whatever you want, and weave them in. Don't sort of feel that it has to be salesy, but you know, you could make it kind of like spam train or whatever it is. So that's during your performance, and just make sure you try and take it in and enjoy it, because, you know, life's too short. It really is. And you want to make it your first and last, you know, gig every single time. And then the post gig is always be at the merch stand. Don't let someone else do it. Maybe someone like in between the breaks, or if they're coming up to you when you're in the green room, but afterwards you've got to be there in person. And as neurodivergence is really hard, because we you know, looking people in, you know, eye contact or communication, small talk, all of that sort of stuff is hard. But most of the time people come up and talk to you about your music. And that's really easy to talk about because you've been through the whole creation process. And if they ask you about conversations about, you know, guitar, or they might ask you about, you know, lessons or whatever it is and stuff, this is where you got your website. And this is where your website's really important. And I'll go into another episode about sort of that online business, setting up a website, because it's a hub for everything that you need to. And you can go, well, just go to jonhartmusic.com. Boom. It's got everything there on the homepage. It tells you all these things, and then get in contact. And then some people might go, oh, I'm putting on a party for this date and just wondering if you're available and what your rates are. I'm like, to be honest, I'm going to forget everything right now because of my neurodivergent brain. Just go and check out my website and pop us an inquiry, so then I can have a look through it and then we can chat tomorrow. They're like, yeah, sounds great. And it also means I can avoid the price conversation because it's on my website there for a reason, so I don't have to deal with confrontation. And then just shaking people's hands, making them feel welcome, thanking them for coming. Go round every single person and thank them for coming. It's not hard, you know, and you don't feel like, oh, I'm the artist, I shouldn't have to do that. Thank everybody. They're there for a reason. They're there to support you. And if they can go on your mailing list, great. But one way I've actually got people to go on my mailing list is like, well, you can go to my website. I've got a free 4-track EP that you can sign up for, and they subscribe. And then I've got like emails that come out automatically for that free EP. That's the best way to get them on the mailing list. They've already got access to the digital stuff rather than just writing them down on paper. Do it the way you want to do it. You can set up with an iPad. The other thing is thank the sound guy, thank the venue manager. Then put up photos and videos online, thanking the venue, you know, and them supporting you. And then obviously sort out the business stuff wherever it is and stuff as well. But the key thing is that don't be a knob. don't be pretentious. Don't let the ego take over and you're like, oh, I'm the musician. I know I can't do all this. I can't talk to these people, blah, 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 blah. Even if you're nervous, it's essential because you're not just a music artist, you're a music business at the same time. You want to be coming back. You want people to remember you. And the best way they remember you is not just your music, is that handshake and those little tiny chats that you have at the end. I've had students turn up to my gigs. I've had family turn up to my gigs. And recently I've been breaking down about the neurodiversity and mental health and all these sort of stuff as well. And they can see the resilience and strength. And some people share their stories themselves. You know, I wrote a song called Father about my father, and people come up to me like they've lost their father. And so they say it resonates with them. They want to thank me. And then we just have a conversation and we're equals. Everyone is equal. No one is caressing each other's ego or whatever it is. We're not putting on pedestals. And if that is, and if there's musicians and, you know, maybe you're like, oh, this is my hero, my music hero and legend, but you turn up and they're arrogant as hell and stuff as well. And you're like, there's a disconnect between their music and their personality and the person they are and the character. And maybe they've lost themselves. And the thing is that I think we all need to ground ourselves. And that's why I think, because I maybe have not made it to the you know, the ultimate level as a musician, if you think a mainstream world, and I'm still going, I'm still churning away in things, it's grounded me. And I think everything that's happened to me over the last few years has grounded me and allowed me to work on myself internally and just like, do you know what, we're all in this together. So if you are a musician, if you're a neurodivergent musician and you need help with any of this, any support of this, any advice, please just go to jonhartmusic.com, JONHART music.com. Pop us an email. Let us know about the podcast. Let us know what you're doing. You know, I've had a few emails and they're not just musicians, they're creatives, artists. Just let us know what you're doing. And if you need any support or advice, or you just want to have a chat, let us know. Also got the Facebook group, which is the Neurodivergent Musicians. It's a very slow builder, and you know, I don't know, it might work. I might not be as active in there as well. I need some help with that. But if you are someone that is really good with online stuff, like, you know, I'd love to set up a Discord community for, you know, I know ADHD adults. They've got amazing community with that. I don't even know where to start with it. And also maintaining a Facebook group, maybe helping me out with it. Or helping me spread the word with it. Or if you know a guest, or if you, whatever it is, please just get in contact and let me know what you think. You can also head on over to Spotify now, because I've moved over to Spotify for podcasters. And on each episode, there's a little Q&A. So I've put on like, what's your experience with recording and mixing? What's your experience with RSD? And you can answer the question. There's also polls in there now. I also got a little subscription thing for some bonus material if you want to help me keep the podcast going. Just doing this off my own back. When I got time, I do it. I bring out the main episode once a week on a Monday or Tuesday, depending on how I feel, or depending on how, you know, if I've got it done in time. And then I bring out a little highlight for those people on the go of old episodes on Fridays. And then the bonus ones comes out like every 2 weeks as part of the subscription. So anyway, waffling now, and I'm getting into the 40-minute mark. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode. Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye.